It's quite striking, isn't it, how separate the generations can feel these days in Scotland.
Mm.
The numbers alone, they paint a picture.
Okay.
Between, what was it, 1999 and 2009?
Yeah, that period.
An 8% drop in under 16s and a 14% surge in over 75s.
That's a big shift. And it's not stopping.
Exactly. They're projecting a 50% increase in over 60s by 2033.
Wow.
And then you add in, people moving around more, technology changing so fast, families looking different.
It all impacts those community connections, doesn't it?
It really does. And maybe it's not so surprising then, that statistic about young people. Over 60% feeling they've faced age discrimination.
Well, what's interesting is that this isn't just a feeling people have, right? These big demographic changes, this sense of disconnect, it's actually pushed people to look for solutions.
People are trying to figure out how to bridge that gap.
Exactly. Actively looking for ways.
Which brings us neatly to this whole idea of intergenerational practice.
Mm.
There's a great definition from the Beth Johnson Foundation. They talk about bringing people together purposefully.
Right. Purposeful, mutually beneficial activities. That's key.
Yeah. The goal being, more understanding, more respect between generations.
And ultimately building stronger communities, more cohesive.
So let's dive into some real examples, how this looks on the ground here in Scotland.
Okay. Well, we've got this really interesting report from YouthLink Scotland. It looked at 4 pilot projects.
Right.
And these weren't just theories, They were really trying to see how intergenerational work could fit into youth work settings.
Practical stuff.
Very practical. And they had some ambitious goals. Things like challenging perceptions about crime,
Okay.
boosting community confidence overall, getting positive results for everyone involved, obviously.
And learning lessons, presumably. What works, what doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Identifying the challenges, the opportunities for this kind of practice.
And these pilots, they were all over, weren't they? Different communities.
Yeah, quite diverse. You had the Inverclyde PODs in Port Glasgow,
Okay.
the North Edinburgh Intergenerational Project, Tullabody Families over in Clackmannanshire,
Right.
and Dunoon Common Ground down on the Cowal Peninsula.
So 4 different spots, 4 different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack what these projects found out,
Mm-hmm.
about bringing different ages together.
What were the big insights, the surprises?
Yeah, exactly. What hurdles did they hit? We want to give you the fast track, basically, to understanding how we can build those stronger connections.
And it's important to remember, I think, that while they shared that main goal, the how was different.
Right. Different methods, different environments.
Which is great for us because that diversity gives us richer insights, what works where.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Just forming relationships. Sounds simple, maybe.
Well, yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah.
But getting different age groups to actually connect, properly connect,
Yeah.
it wasn't always straightforward.
Right, like the Inverclyde PODs example. Young people were keen.
Really enthusiastic, yeah.
But the older residents, more hesitant.
And it seems like the location played a part there. It was this muddy old school site.
Yeah, not exactly inviting, maybe. And there was this feeling of, oh, that's for the young people.
A real barrier.
Yeah.
Which tells you immediately, doesn't it? The environment is crucial.
Absolutely. Compare that to Dunoon Common Ground.
Right, they use the local museum.
Totally different vibe. Neutral ground, welcoming for everyone. Didn't feel like it belonged to one group.
That's such a good point. It levels the playing field right away.
And it wasn't just the physical space, was it? It was also how they handled those first meetings.
The approach.
Dunoon, they did separate pre-meetings. One for the younger group, one for the older group.
Smart. Why?
Well, it let them set some ground rules, right? Address concerns up front, like older people worrying about child protection, which is understandable.
Addressing those anxieties head on. That makes sense.
But Inverclyde, it seems they kind of skipped that prep stage.
Which, unfortunately, led to some misunderstandings, maybe some disillusionment.
Yeah, potentially. And North Edinburgh, they did it differently again, didn't they? More organic.
Yeah, they prioritized just letting interactions happen more naturally, less structured up front.
So quite a contrast there. It really shows how important that careful planning can be.
Definitely. Setting expectations, dealing with worries early on, it makes a big difference to how willing people are to actually engage.
It suggests you need some expertise, really. Good facilitation skills.
Absolutely.
Time was another big factor, wasn't it?
Huge. Relationships need time.
Dunoon deliberately built in time just for talking.
Recognizing that need, yeah. Whereas North Edinburgh, their approach was more event-based,
Yeah, and spread out geographically, plus funding issues.
so harder to build those really sustained connections.
Right. Tullibody was more informal interactions, and Inverclyde was still kind of grappling with those initial barriers.
It suggests that, one-off events are maybe a start, but deeper connections probably need more regular, purposeful interaction.
So what actually worked? What got people engaged?
Fun,
Simple as that.
pretty much. Across the board, fun activities scored really highly with both younger and older people.
Like what?
Oh, arts and crafts, music. Inverclyde had rock in the POD,
Ah, sounds brilliant.
photography in Dunoon, community gardening in Tullibody. It wasn't formal learning.
It was the social side.
Right.
Relaxed, informal.
Exactly. Sharing a bit of joy, it seems, is a great way to break down barriers.
Makes sense. Creates common ground.
It really does. It's about finding those shared interests, those positive emotions. That's what bridges the divides, not forcing it.
And the relationships that formed, they varied quite a bit in depth.
Yeah, definitely. Dunoon, you saw some really strong bonds forming. People felt
Oh.
okay sharing their views.
Whereas Tullibody and North Edinburgh, maybe more activity-based connections.
More visual, perhaps, based around doing things together. And Inverclyde, unfortunately, they sometimes had conflict, different levels of engagement.
So it's not a magic wand then. Intergenerational practice.
No, it reminds us that the activities, the focus on talking, the existing community stuff, it all shapes the kind of relationships you get.
Okay, so summing up on forming relationships, strong bonds are possible.
But getting started can be tough, needs skill.
People's other commitments get in the way. Local knowledge helps. Comfy spaces are key.
Those pre-meetings seem valuable.
And fun, interactive stuff works. Plus, staff need time to actually prepare it all.
That all sounds right.
Right. So, moving on. How did these projects actually aim to, improve people's lives, make a difference?
Well, this ties into that Scottish government framework, doesn't it? Helping young people become
Successful learners, confident individuals.
responsible citizens and effective contributors.
Yeah.
The projects actively tried to nurture these things.
And did they? Let's look at successful learners first. Any examples?
Loads. North Edinburgh's youth group, they picked up skills in communication, making presentations, even video editing.
Useful stuff.
Tullibody, the garden project, helped with teamwork, general competence. And Dunoon, it wasn't just the young people learning IT skills.
Older people, too.
Yeah, older participants got involved with IT alongside the youngsters.
That's great.
And Inverclyde's Rock in the POD, that fostered teamwork. And one young person actually went on to start their own dance class.
Wow. That's a fantastic outcome.
It really shows how these settings can offer different kinds of learning, doesn't it? Beyond just school stuff. Real-world skills.
What about confidence? Confident individuals.
Big improvements there, too, especially for the young people.
Really?
Yeah. In North Edinburgh, one young person apparently overcame some significant communication difficulties through the project.
That's amazing.
The Dunoon participants felt more able to speak their minds, express ideas. Tullibody young people got more confident talking to adults.
And Inverclyde, performing at that gala day must have been a boost.
Definitely a sense of achievement. Interestingly, though, for the older people in Dunoon,
Yeah.
who were already pretty confident, it seems, the project didn't make a huge difference to their confidence.
Okay, so maybe the impact varies depending on who you're working with.
Exactly. It suggests we need more research with older adults who might be more isolated or less confident to start with.
But still, that boost for young people's confidence, especially interacting with adults, that feels significant.
Oh, definitely. Creating those supportive spaces where they feel safer expressing themselves, that's huge.
Okay, third one. Responsible citizens. How did the projects encourage that?
Well, Dunoon's photo exhibition is a good example. They aim to spark positive change.
Right. But didn't it get some pushback from businesses?
It did initially, yeah. But that negative reaction actually seemed to galvanize the participants, made them more engaged civically.
Interesting. So a challenge led to more engagement.
Seems so. And the feedback, the outcome wheels they used, showed increased sensitivity to others in Dunoon and North Edinburgh.
And respect for different beliefs in North Edinburgh, too.
Yep. Plus, you saw young people there getting involved in other community events.
Right.
In Inverclyde, some older young people tried to set up a youth committee. And in Tullibody, one young person was actually inspired to train as a social worker because of the project.
Wow. These are really tangible examples of fostering that civic responsibility.
Yeah, encouraging that sense of belonging, wanting to contribute, even when things get tricky.
And that leads nicely into the last one, effective contributors. Feeling like you make a difference.
Absolutely. Look at Tullibody.
Yeah.
Those young people stuck with the community garden even after it got vandalized.
That shows real commitment.
It does, and that commitment actually encouraged more older residents to get involved too.
Ah, so it had a ripple effect.
Seems like it. In Verkleide's Gala Day, you had every young people, volunteers, staff working together on a shared goal.
Right.
In Dunoon, the feedback showed both age groups felt they genuinely contributed through their exhibition. Especially the young people felt better able to express views and work with others.
And North Edinburgh had that strong sense of contribution, too, leading to new members.
Yeah, an even stronger sense of belonging and contribution there, it seems. People wanted to join in.
So feeling like you have agency, like you can contribute meaningfully, that's vital, isn't it?
For individuals and for the community. And these projects seem pretty good at fostering that.
Okay, so key takeaways on improving lives. Real potential for positive impact, especially for young people across all those areas.
Yeah, confidence boost with adults is a big one.
The project's approach, who they partner with, that matters for the citizenship and contribution stuff.
We need to think longer term, too.
And the pilot timeframe definitely limited things. Okay, let's broaden out again. Building stronger communities.
Right, so this is about cohesion. Challenging stereotypes, building confidence in the community overall, and encouraging that sense of shared ownership.
Stereotypes first. Any good stories there?
Yeah, quite a few encouraging ones. Dunoon, again, young people were surprised at how active the older folk were. And the older people got a new perspective on the town's issues and what life was like for young people.
Seeing things from the other side?
Exactly. In Tullibody, older residents started seeing young people more positively, different from media stereotypes.
And the young people felt they were showing a better side of themselves.
Yeah, presenting a positive image. North Edinburgh specifically aimed to tackle stereotypes.
And did they?
Seems so. The young people were genuinely surprised, apparently, by how much fun they had with the older adults.
Huh. That's great, breaking down those preconceived ideas.
Definitely. Inverclyde was working on it, but the report wasn't totally clear on the impact on older residents' views there.
But overall, positive signs for shifting perceptions.
Yeah, that direct positive interaction is key to getting past the us and them,
Yeah.
seeing the shared humanity.
What about community confidence? Did things feel safer, better?
Some interesting links there. In Inverclyde, the PODs offered positive activities.
Diversionary stuff.
Yeah, and that was linked to fewer complaints locally. Police stats back that up.
Okay, tangible result.
Police in North Edinburgh also found the project useful, helped them connect with young people, get a better sense of what was going on.
Community intelligence, almost.
Kind of. And Tullibody police thought there might be less vandalism because the kids were invested in building the garden.
Makes sense. You look after what you build.
Exactly. Dunoon's impact on community safety seemed less direct, maybe because they weren't working with the most hard-to-reach groups.
Okay. But still, that link between positive engagement and perceived safety is pretty significant.
It really is. Constructive activities, better communication,
Mm-hmm.
it can make a real difference to antisocial behavior.
Right. And finally, community ownership. Did people feel more invested in their local area?
The Verkleide's PODs became a real community hub, didn't they? And those young people trying to start a youth council.
Shows initiative.
Tullibody's focus was more on the family center, so maybe less visible community-wide.
But helped locals feel more connected to that specific space.
Yeah, more at home there.
Dunoon was interesting because they explicitly linked up with the community development group.
Right?
That public exhibition really got people talking across the community.
Yeah.
And after a tragic local event, the project was actually highlighted in the press
As an example of what?
as an example of identifying needed change in the community.
Oh, that's powerful.
North Edinburgh, community leaders liked seeing the young people involved, but there was a slight worry, maybe, that the big events could overshadow the group's main purpose.
Keeping the focus right.
Yeah, so cultivating that sense of ownership, especially for young people, it's crucial for the long run. And these projects showed different ways to do it.
Okay, so summing up on building communities, positive impacts on stereotypes, confidence, ownership, but it takes time.
Definitely takes time. And individual views changing within the project doesn't automatically mean the whole community's view shifts quickly. Good point. And the police connection.
Yeah.
Potential there, but needs careful handling.
Yeah, you don't want it to feel like surveillance.
And better community engagement really depends on the project's specific approach, focus, and, crucially, if it can keep going. sustainability.
Absolutely.
So let's pull back. Reflections on intergenerational practice overall, based on all this.
Well, despite all the different methods and the challenges they faced, the project managers, they were overwhelmingly positive.
Really? Even those who are maybe skeptical at first?
Yeah, even them. They really came to see the value, the long-term potential.
There's that quote from the Inverclyde manager, isn't there? Saying they'd underestimated it.
Yeah, underestimated its importance and now saw it as like a core foundation for communities.
That's quite a turnaround.
It is, and there was this clear feeling across the teams that we need more of this work.
And they identified what makes it work well.
Yep. Key things were long-term sustainability, funding, resources,
Okay.
always funding. Effective partnerships were crucial too, making sure everyone had equal respect and equal voice,
Right.
and that it remained voluntary. People have to want to be there. The Telebody manager really hammered home that need for long-term investment and working together.
It really points towards needing a more, I don't know, systemic approach, seeing this as vital community development work.
Exactly. Not just a nice little add-on project.
And the role of youth workers came up strongly too, didn't it?
Massively. Their skills, their resources, the fact they already have relationships with young people, it's seen as crucial.
Makes sense. They're well placed.
The CLD worker in North Edinburgh mentioned how intensive the work is.
Yeah.
And the Dunoon manager called for consistent funding for youth work to actually support these intergenerational efforts.
So the youth work infrastructure is kind of essential for this to succeed more widely.
Seems that way. Their expertise and networks are invaluable for getting young people engaged and making those cross-generational connections work.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this all together. The pilots aimed to challenge crime perceptions,
Improve community confidence,
get positive outcomes for participants.
and figure out the challenges and opportunities.
Right. So challenging crime perceptions. Potential there, but harder if there's already conflict. Needs time, careful management.
Community confidence definitely boosted among the young people. They felt more comfortable, more pride.
Positive outcomes for participants. Yeah, skills, confidence, especially for the young ones.
Definitely. And the challenges and opportunities identified.
Mhm.
Things like getting people involved initially,
Venue suitability being important.
managing expectations, dealing with existing conflicts.
And the ever-present limits on funding and time.
The usual suspects,
Mm.
but ultimately the evaluation really strongly suggests that this stuff works. It makes a real positive difference, even with limited resources.
And the fact the managers and participants were so positive, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It's a powerful indicator of the potential here, fostering more connected, more understanding communities.
So the big takeaway then, for you listening, is that intergenerational practice in Scotland, yeah, it faces challenges, getting people engaged, needing careful planning, sustained effort, all that's true. But it holds really significant promise for bridging those generational divides, which often feel pretty wide,
And improving individual lives in really meaningful ways.
and ultimately strengthening the whole community fabric.
This report, it gives a really compelling glimpse into that power, doesn't it? Bringing generations together, tackling key issues.
Okay, so now a thought for you. Think about your own life, your own community. What are your perceptions, really, of different generations? And here's the challenge, the provocation. What's one small thing, one concrete step you could take, maybe even today, to connect with someone from a different generation nearby?
Just think about the wealth of experience out there, the different viewpoints,
Mhm.
and what you both might gain, even from just reaching out.
A simple chat, maybe?
Could be all it takes.
Now, if you want to dig deeper, the full report is bridgingthegenerationgap.pdf. Loads more detail in there.
Yeah, lots of findings, recommendations. Worth a look if you're really interested.
And we'd encourage you, look around your own area. Are there similar things happening? How could you maybe support them or even get involved?
Seeing how it works locally, how it's adapted, that can be really insightful too. How it makes a difference right there on the ground.
Because ultimately, fostering these connections, it just has this huge potential to build communities that are more understanding, more resilient.
And that's surely better for everyone, isn't it? A future that benefits us all.